This is Our Side of Addiction, the podcast. I'm Amanda Bork. Let's go. Welcome in. I am here. You're here. We are here together. Let's begin by discussing our topic of the day. We are going to be highlighting addiction in conjunction with mental health, especially mental health disorders. They quite often go hand in hand. And this can sometimes be a little confusing for us, the loved ones of addicts, to know it's almost a chicken or an egg kind of scenario. What happened first, or what does occur first? It can happen both ways. It's a swinger. Or what is it? It's a bi or something like that. It goes both ways. It can happen before addiction and can cause addiction or lead someone there. And it can also happen as a result of addiction. And that leaves us in the state of perpetuating the addiction or making the individual more susceptible to a relapse because that mental health disorder is still there once they've gotten sober. They're separate things. Though they're linked, they have to be treated separately. And mental health disorders or mental health issues can be a little vast. I feel like it's very prolific right now to talk about personal ailments, and people are self-diagnosing and shouting from the rooftop their mental illness. We aren't about that here. I don't like that. I find it very weird. But instead, because it's not for us to diagnose a mental health disorder, especially of someone else, it's not our place, but it's important for us to realize how closely linked addiction and mental health disorder is, so that we can be of better support and we're more versed on both of the topics. This can look like anxiety, depression, mood swings, paranoia, panic attacks, symptoms of hypertension, personality changes. It can even be particular responses to trauma. If we're suspecting our loved one is using substance or engaged in an addiction, we might see some of these symptoms and think it could be caused by the substance use, but not really sure. It might not. This might be surfacing because the substance use is wearing off and the mental health disorders are taking center stage at that point. That's why it's so confusing. But mental health disorders as like this dual diagnosis, what exactly does that mean? Well, that just means someone with a substance use disorder and a mental health disorder. They're occurring at the same time. That could be major depressive disorders, generalized anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, PTSD, ADHD, borderline personality disorder, and even schizophrenia. For a little context, many substances can cause many types of disorders. For example, alcohol, it can trigger or even worsen depression, anxiety, panic disorders. Certain stimulants, cocaine, methamphetamines, ecstasy, these can cause paranoia, anxiety, hallucinations, psychosis. Opioids, maybe such as heroin or fentanyl or the other types of prescriptions that might have been handed out, they are associated very heavily with extreme depression and anxiety. Even marijuana or cannabis, sometimes people like to dismiss that as a drug, but it is, and it is addictive. If you've known anyone who smokes, it's almost always in an addictive manner. I've come across people who will smoke all day long. Like they have to be high all day during work, even when they're at home. That's an addiction. People tend to dismiss it, but it is. And it can increase our risk of anxiety, depression, psychosis, or even schizophrenia. These substances can trigger personality disorders, mood disorders, substance-induced psychosis. And that's where that chicken or the egg thing comes in. Was there a mental health disorder and then we medicated using substance? Or did we get drawn into substance? Perhaps there was trauma or something. We got into substance and that created or generated a mental health disorder. It goes both ways, and it can even compound our issues. If someone had a mental health disorder and then used, that using initially might feel like a relief, but it can actually exacerbate the mental health disorder, make it worse, or cause something else to happen as well. Studies have shown that nearly half of individuals with a substance use disorder also have at least one mental health disorder concurrently at the same time. It's very common. And unfortunately, not every, especially if our loved ones say they're getting treatment at a rehab facility, they're not always going to be treating mental health disorders properly. Maybe they'll get you on medication, but that'll be about it. They'll kind of get you as stable as possible and then send you on your way. It's critical that the mental health is treated separately and properly from the addiction. With that statistic being so high, you can see it's not unusual. It's not uncommon for this to be occurring in our loved ones. Now, if it's so common, why? One of the reasons is the one I've already given, self-medicating. This is the most well-known and common. A lot of people do this. Even if we don't have an addiction, a lot of people might drink to calm their nerves or smoke weed to relax and fall asleep. We already use substances, just generalize in general, as a means to alter our state in some sense to give ourselves some relief. Addicts do it to the ultimate extreme, or they get lured in to behaviors and substances that aren't as easy to regulate, or they aren't themselves easy to regulate their usage. Some of the more common reasons why we might self-medicate: anxiety, especially if it's chronic, or if we have some kind of social anxiety and we're going into a networking event, you might take a few shots before. Our addicts are the same. It could have started in that space. Also, flashbacks from traumatic experiences. If there was abuse or rape or kidnapping or threats on life, perhaps war, you're having these flashbacks and you don't want to have them. To emotionally numb, that might be one reason we're self-medicating. Our emotions are too much, just too much to handle, or we want to break from our emotions. So we use that as a way to have that escape. There's depression. That can be a reason as well. And racing thoughts. If you've ever experienced in your life times where you couldn't control your thoughts or you just wanted a break from them, that's that self-medication coming in. People suffer when they have mental health disorders. And once they discover there's some kind of reprieve when they use substance, it's almost like a light bulb moment for them. Oh my God, I don't have to walk around with this crippling anxiety. Wow, I get a break from these obsessive thoughts. I can feel a little normal in a social setting. It's almost exciting for them that they don't have to be suffering in this manner anymore. And we find often that's one of the biggest hooks that gets people addicted or into that chronic use category at the very least, is this reprieve from suffering. Even though it's temporary, they know that, it's still a relief. And if we're doing it also for being a little loose before a date or a networking event or going out with our friends, or we want to unwind with a glass of wine and smoke a little weed or eat an edible, we are also doing the same thing. It's just not manifesting as extremism in the way that an addict does. Over time, the brain learns that these substances equate to relief. And it starts breeding this environment internally where the brain drives the person to these behaviors to get the relief. Like, that's the solution for the brain. Once we've established it in the brain, oh, that's how I stop those thoughts. That's how I act a little normal at a family gathering. Then the brain realizes this is our solution to everything. Go to the substance. Use more. Wake up and do it straight away so we don't even have a minute to have the thoughts. It's this training of the brain to seek the behaviors, and then the brain controlling and dictating to continue with those behaviors. The more we progress in that direction and are controlled in this manner, our behaviors being controlled, the more our tolerance builds, because we're going to be using more or spending more time just throughout the day under the usage of the substance. That leads into dependence, which that's where that usually stems from a lot of the time. It started as a way to cope, spiraled into a full-blown addiction. Again, this isn't going to be for everyone, but I see this and hear this in my professional work quite often. It's extremely common. Another reason for the dual diagnosis is that the brain systems that regulate mood, stress, motivation, self-control, these are the same systems for both mental health illnesses and addiction, substance abuse disorders. There's this overlap in using the same systems. When we are more vulnerable or dysregulated, a person can be at risk for both substance use disorders and mental health disorders, and both can occur at the same time. This includes how our dopamine is released and regulated, how are we responding to stress and the systems that respond to stress, our emotional regulation, how we're processing threat, how we're processing survival. Usually what we find is that people who are dysregulated, more impulsive, those are the people who are more vulnerable to both addiction and mental health disorders. The next reason is trauma as a root cause. Trauma can drive mental health disorder. Trauma can also drive addiction. So we can have both. Studies have shown that trauma alters many things about us, including our sensitivity to threat, even our perception of threat, our attachment styles or patterns, how we emotionally regulate ourselves, even our capacity for that regulation, and our regulation of our stress hormones. All of these things play a big role in mental health and addiction, which is why both things can happen at the same time. The next one is, of course, I mentioned this, how addiction can worsen mental health. When we're in that chronic substance use zone, we can be increasing our depression, increasing our anxiety, triggering psychosis, disrupting sleep cycles, worsening mood stability or instability, It's challenging because if our loved ones, having trouble with my tongue today, if our addicts got into using because they had a mental health disorder, and then eventually the using brought them relief, but ultimately made their mental health worse, it's very difficult for them because they thought they found the solution, but now it's worse. So now I have to use more, or I have to be using all day long from the moment I wake up. It sends them into this spiral that goes very deep. Which brings us to our side of this experience. It can be frustrating. Whether we are aware of a mental health disorder being there or not. Again, we don't want to diagnose anyone. That's not our role. We are not qualified to do so. So please do not go around telling your addict they have a mental health disorder. I would be pissed off if someone said that to me. I'd be so pissed. So please don't do that. It's crazy. Maybe encourage them to get a professional diagnosis or be seen by some professional once they've gotten sober. The problem is that overlap. If someone is actively using we're not going to be able to give them a proper diagnosis because, as you've seen, there's an immense overlap. It's kind of similar to how if you lose someone in death and you're grieving them, no one's going to diagnose you with depression because it's like, well, that's part of the grieving process, but yeah, depression could be there. We can't diagnose it properly because of that overlap. It's the same. Once our addicts have gotten clean, then we can proceed with some kind of diagnosis so there's more clarity and space between the two. But right now they're enmeshed. For us, we're just sitting back. Is this a mental illness? Is this depression? Did they relapse? Are they being lazy? Are they dysfunctional? Is there a mood disorder? Are they withdrawing? We also go back and forth, partly to rationalize things, partly to understand what's happening with them. Is this a drug thing? Is this a mental illness thing? If a professional can't tell the difference, you can't. I would always lean on the side of it's both. Let's address the addiction first, get that a little bit cleared away, then we can do the mental health. To make it very clear, the mental health must be addressed if it exists in there. Getting into rehab, being sober, that doesn't address mental health disorders. It's not going to resolve or go away because the addiction went away. It has to be separately looked at. For us, this causes, of course, frustration, anger, exhaustion, confusion. We want to be compassionate. We want to be hopeful, but there's so much tied into that. And then we have our baggage. We're afraid. Our stress levels are elevated. We're in fight or flight mode. We're projecting onto them because we're afraid. It gets murky in here. Ideally, if we can get our loved ones sober, just a little bit, and then kind of swiftly come in with some kind of mental health treatment, that's ideal. We don't want to leave someone sober for an extended period of time with a mental health disorder still running wild. There's just no opportunity to remain sober in that environment, especially if they were in the scenario of getting started in their usage as a means to self-medicate. Ultimately, they're going to go back to that same strategy. The most optimal would be getting into a rehab that properly addresses mental health disorders. That's ultimate. We're not always going to have access to that for whatever reason. But making sure our medications for our loved ones are managed is important. They're getting some type of therapy, maybe even behavioral therapy. They're getting evaluated so they can get a proper diagnosis. Again, you're not diagnosing. The rehab isn't diagnosing. A professional is diagnosing them. Maybe they're preferring counseling. There's group therapy, peer support. There's all kinds of resources. For us, it's imperative that we support them and ensure that they're tending to their mental health needs if we want them to be sober for a substantial period of time. They won't even make it 6 months if there's a mental health disorder that's not being addressed. It would be a miracle for them to go 6 months. It's imperative that we support that and encourage them to maintain that mental health. Look, some families, some people, medication is a little controversial. Medication in general or for mental health disorders. There are people who aren't sold on mental health disorders. They're like, shut up and manage it. Be tougher. While I get that, having an addiction makes it more complex. And when there is an addiction, like I said, we're not going to be successful in sobriety. We're not going to last 6 months. And if we actually want our addicts to be successful in sobriety, we're going to have to maybe support things that we don't necessarily agree with. And what do I always say? We constantly make this about us, and it's not. It's about our loved ones getting the help that they need in the way that's best for them, not us, not our belief systems, not our desires, our timeline. We have to stop making it about us. Even if you don't agree with medication, you don't agree with mental health disorders, or you aren't fully sold on it, it's not about you. It's about our loved one and wanting the best for them and opening ourselves up to all options for them and for the sake of their future. Maybe we're getting in the category of, well, if they're sober, but they're also on this other medication, are they sober? Even addicts themselves struggle with that. I think as long as we're properly addressing addiction separately from the mental health, yes, we are sober. Sometimes you need medication for a short period for mental health. Sometimes it's long period. That's depends on what's happening, depends on the person and the context. Some people go on medicine just to get through something or work through an issue. Especially like antidepressants. They're not actually meant for long-term use. They're meant short-term so that we can mitigate and manage things a little bit while we dig in there in therapy. We can make it more accessible and a little more comfortable while we're working through the issues. That's the real proper use for antidepressants. And if we need to be on those while we work through some things, we should all be okay and supportive of our addicts if that's what they need to do. And honestly, is it your fucking business? Excuse my language, but is it even your business how someone else is getting through life, how they're managing? If the choice is being an active addict or being on some kind of mental health medication, I know what I would choose for my loved one. Let's get on that medicine and I'm going to learn about it and we're going to be supportive about it. As this space is all about you, the loved one of an addict, what kind of impact is this having on our relationships? Because if there is addiction and mental health disorders, that's double exhausting. You think someone is volatile in an addiction, add mental health disorders. You're out here trying to manage crisis. You're trying to predict the future with your crystal ball, trying to gauge states, emotional states. You're constantly adjusting your expectations. You're also walking on eggshells. We're grieving this person that we used to know, used to have a deep relationship with. And this addiction and mental illness together change that. They change energy levels, motivation, personality, emotions, stability. It's very overwhelming, especially if, say, our addicts get clean and then these mental health illnesses start to surface. It can feel like we're restarting because here they are, volatile, lethargic. It's almost as though we're reliving the experience with active addiction. And for us, that's very fatigue-inducing. We're going to have some kind of resentment or feel like we have to be hyper-vigilant, maybe even burnt out. Again, there you are, chronic stress. And then on top of all of that, you're going to feel guilty for feeling resentful, for being fatigued, for having some kind of burnout. These responses are all very normal. Your body is trying to survive in a very unstable, unsafe environment. But it deeply impacts our relationship with our addicts and, in turn, can impact our relationships with ourselves. What are some misconceptions / barriers that we might encounter as it pertains to this dual diagnosis? The first one is one that's very common. I hear it a lot. If they really wanted to, they would just stop. They would get help. They would go to therapy. All of that. Motivation, we need that to change. Yet when there's that dual diagnosis, it's double hard to get in there and get treatment or feel the drive to go and get treatment. It's not a matter of just stop, just go into rehab. It's so much more complicated than that. And also, willpower. We can't willpower away a mental health disorder or an addiction. If you could, we wouldn't need rehabs. We wouldn't need all of these different types of addiction treatment programs or meetings, 12-step meetings. They're everywhere. You can go to a meeting in a small town. It wouldn't need to exist if all's required would have been willpower. The next one is medication is just replacing one drug with another. Sometimes, yeah. But is it necessary short term? Do we need this medicine in the moment to help our brains with regulation? To help make addiction less compulsive? Well, I know it's very torrid, our relationship with pharmaceuticals, and we've all seen the documentaries about how opioid issues got started. It's from our doctors, from our pharmacists. And there was a lot of kickbacks, and the system is designed to keep you on a medication. Who doesn't love a reoccurring customer? Come on now. And give you a medicine that makes you have high blood pressure, and then another medicine for the high blood pressure, and then it's a cycle, and it's by design. I used to live in India, and I made a mistake. I ate some food I shouldn't have eaten. I ate a falafel kebab, and one of the cardinal rules when you travel, especially to third world countries, is you only eat local cuisine. Like, you're not eating pizza in India, okay? You eat Indian food in India. But I was so sick of Indian food. I had been there at that point probably about 8 months, and I was like fucking tired of Indian. And I went for a falafel. I got so sick, really bad, and I was in fetal position for days. I didn't want to go to the doctor, but one of the family that I was living with, their relative came over and he dragged me out of bed and brought me to a doctor. And the doctor said I had a parasite. He checked my belly and said I have a parasite. And he said something to me that I will never forget, and I had never encountered before. He said, "You need medicine. Do you want chemical or natural?" My jaw hit the floor. What? There's an option? There's an option? I can choose chemical or natural? What the hell? I said, natural. Give me the natural thing. What is it? It was 2 days, and I was able to at least walk. It was quick, and it got rid of everything, and I was back to good. But you would think in the United States of America, we would also have options. Like, if they're having options in third world countries, why the fuck do we not have the same or better options? We don't. We're diverted into one pigeonhole, and that's it. If you want anything alternative, it's like specialty. I feel like it was during the Prohibition era, if you're trying to get alternative medicine, because it's like hush hush and people will talk, and you have to find someone who's not able to use a certain title for a certain reason. It's kind of crazy. But I can get the stigma around that. I also am not a medicine person. If I have to, I will. Like, if there's antibiotic or something. Other than that, I don't want to. But I get the sentiment, and addicts themselves struggle with this. I'm swapping one thing for another one. We need it sometimes, and we don't want to demonize it all the time. We want to make sure that we're asserting ourselves over our health and ensuring we aren't giving godlike power to doctors, because I feel like that's how they roll up in those rooms, like a god. We want to make sure that even if they are laughing at us or try to dumb us down, that we're still choosing the best options for ourselves, regardless of what they think. I mean, even when I go to the dentist and I say no fluoride, they're snarky about it. And I was like, you can't make choices for yourself around your health or your body, or they're gonna try to make you dumb. Like, come on, idiot. Oh, no fluoride. Ooh. That's the response you got. But we're just gonna have to buck up and be like, okay, you can laugh and scoff at me all you want. You're still doing it without fluoride because it's my mouth. And we still want to make sure we're asserting that dominance in all contexts as it pertains to our health and medical treatment. A big part of that is doing our own independent research from many sources, making sure we're versed as well. The next barrier we might find is it's all trauma and therapy will fix everything. kind of thinking that therapy will fix the addiction as well as the mental health disorder. That's not true. They're separate things, and therapy is amazing. Whatever kind of therapy, because there are different kinds. Whatever lines best for you. Like, for example, the traditional talk therapy, that's not always going to align with most men. They would prefer something more like CBT or the EMDR. We want to play around with the different modalities and see what works best for us, but therapy on its own cannot resolve addiction. It's not possible. And then the classic barrier, I can fix this. If I do enough, I can handle it on my own. Us, the loved ones of an addict, cannot fix addiction, and we cannot fix mental illness. Both of those things can't even be cured. You are not fixing that. What we can do is support them. We can encourage treatment. We can set boundaries and parameters around them and our relationship. But you yourself, you're not the treatment plan. Sometimes we really desperately desire to be, but we are not. And we are not going to continue conducting ourselves in those manners either. Because if ultimately you desire for your loved one to be healthy, that's not how they're going to get there. Making it about you is not how they're going to get there. If you aren't the one who's providing the treatment and the solution to addiction, what is the solution? How do we support our loved ones? The main thing is getting them into rehab, getting them some establishment of sobriety, even just a month. And then encouraging some kind of professional evaluation and diagnosis. Professional. You aren't diagnosing, and they aren't diagnosing either. We're getting professionally analyzed. This is not just for the addiction. This is for the mental health. Once we have that clarity, like I said earlier, where we have that space between the mental health disorder and the addiction, we can get that proper diagnosis. Then we have supporting treatment itself. And this goes for both addiction and mental health disorder. We want to make sure we're supporting treatment for both. How are we doing that? Encouraging them to be consistent. Maybe even encouraging them to attend their appointments or their dates. We can also, if they need help scheduling things or making appointments, ask them. Don't just insert yourself. Ask them. If there's something that you need assistance with, let me know. Even if it's just booking some appointments or helping you figure out your calendar, I'm open to doing that with you. It could also be offering them rides. That's a great one. I'm going to give you a little warning tip here in this section about supporting their treatment. Do not insert yourself into the treatment. That's not being supportive of treatment. Don't go to a 12-step meeting. Don't ask. Don't pressure. Don't pressure them or ask them to go to therapy. Don't insert yourself in any kind of manner. Don't try to get information from doctors because your loved one doesn't want to share with you. Don't try to snoop on their medicine and see what they're taking so you can look it up and try to find the diagnosis yourself. I see you. I know you're sneaky. You're a sneaky little devil. You are making it about you when you're doing those things. And it's not about you. That's not how we're going to be supportive. We don't conduct ourselves in those manners. It's going to stress your loved one out. And I'll tell you, they will get stressed out and they will recoil. You're wanting to be closer to them, but when you force it, people recoil. And you're going to damage your relationship. Whatever trust is barely there by a string, they're going to cut the damn string and be like, see ya. People want privacy and they deserve privacy, especially about mental health disorders or their treatment plans. It's private. It's not for the world and it's not for you. You don't have to know. It's not your business. And we want to be vigilant because we want to see if they're upholding their end. We want to ensure there's not a regression. We want to safeguard ourselves from that heartbreak of a relapse or an episode. And I get the fear. But micromanaging someone's life and inserting yourself into their treatment, it's not how we're going to be doing it. As I always say, we have our side of the journey and it's separate from our loved ones. That's why our side is so important. Because if you don't realize you have a side or you have your own work to do, that's exactly what your default is going to be. Inserting yourself into your loved one's treatment and life and recovery process to the detriment of them, you, and your relationship. Take it from me, don't ever go to a 12-step meeting. Don't ask. Don't force them or manipulate them. Also, don't try to get them to skip. Oh, you went to a meeting yesterday? Do you really have to go again tonight? It's raining. I want to eat popcorn and watch a movie. Doesn't that sound so much better? We also aren't doing that bullshit. That's not how support works. Support is wanting them to be better, wanting them to maintain the standards that they have for themselves, to maintain their sobriety. That's my little tangent on support. I can go on forever about that and all the missteps that we make when we think we're being supportive when we're not. But those are my little warning signs. Okay. The next one is learning about their diagnosis. If they're open and willing to share with you without you pressuring or attempting to snoop or trying to manipulate their emotions, if they really want to share that information with you, then do a little research about it. If we don't know anything about depression, it might look like they're lazy and lethargic, they lack motivation, they need to just get up, stop sleeping. We have that lack of understanding, which equates to that lack of compassion and empathy. And also lack of response. That's not how you support someone in depression. Yet if we don't research it, we aren't versed on it, we don't understand it. If they're open to sharing on their own, then do a little research and find out about it. Of course, we have, it's not an episode without me saying the B word, boundaries. We want to practice our boundaries. We're not over here tolerating anything and everything. Abuse, chaos, enabling, codependency, all that other stuff. How are you supporting recovery? Recovery only. Remember, we're not supporting the addiction via enabling, cushioning consequence, codependency. We support recovery. Do you need a ride to your meeting? I got you. I'll drop you off. I'm going to go take a walk or have some coffee. Call me when you're ready to be picked up. That's how we support them. When they're on the couch, it's chilly outside. They're feeling lazy. They don't want to go to a meeting. You encourage the meeting. I know it sucks, but come on, let's get up. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, and we go. I'll go out there with you. I'll drop you off. I'll go back home. Call me when you're ready. That's it. That's how we're supportive. But we want to make sure we have those boundaries with ourselves and with them. The next one is taking care of your own mental health. Maybe you would benefit from some therapy, counseling, support groups. I always advocate for us having our own community. It's vital. That's what's going to make us feel connected and validated, understood, heard, and supported. Within all that, when we have those environments, it's going to help to regulate our nervous system, for our bodies to feel like it's safe to relax, and it can stabilize. The fact is, the more integrated the treatment is, the more likely the recovery will be long-term, the more possible that becomes. And that's our addicts having that proper integration of treatment for their addiction and mental health disorders. That's also us integrating our journey and processing through our journey, and having our support for our addicts in healthy ways. It's going to require patience, boundaries, structure, maybe some professional care on your side and their side, ongoing mental health support, and even having this prevention plan for if a relapse does occur. It's a process, and there's a lot happening for everyone, but it is absolutely manageable, and we can absolutely process, grow, learn, and become better people together, both us and our addicts. Addiction is very much intertwined with mental health disorders, and it has impacts on our addicts as well as ourselves. It's not going to remove the pain or confusion or make this less shitty, but it is going to empower us to make better choices for ourselves and our addicts. We aren't going to be sitting around asking, like, why are they like this? Why don't they just stop? You should love me enough to stop. We aren't going to ask those questions because we already know those are myths and they're not beneficial. They're not going to change the situation or make anything better. Instead, we're shifting to more productive support, more productive questions. Those are fluff questions. We're getting to the more productive questions so we can get the productive results. Who doesn't want that? I want results. You want results. want better understanding. You want better understanding. That's all I got for you today. I always enjoy being with you and spending time together. I'm so glad that we could bring a little more light to this subject and a little bit more understanding. Start opening up, propping open the door so that we can advance and level up ourselves. That's the game. Level up, baby. Until next time, farewell.